Fragments allow us to write cleaner code to end up with less unnecessary HTML elements on the final page, and that's great. React portals are another useful feature which do something similar, which also help us write cleaner code. Consider this made-up example here. We got two elements, two components, side by side, my modal and my input form, wrapped by a fragment, but the fragment won't matter here. We already learned about that. And the actual content that ends up in the real DOM might look something like this. We might have a section and a h2 tag coming from some other components, because the code on the left is just one of many components in our application, let's say. And then we have that brown content, which is actually the modal, which is being rendered to the DOM in the end by React, and the orange part is our form. Now, what's wrong with that? Technically, nothing. Technically, this is fine. But there is something in this code which is not ideal, and that would be that modal. This modal code, which is being rendered here in the DOM, will technically work as long as you applied the correct styling. It will look like a modal, as you also saw in that demo project we worked on. But semantically, and from a have a clean HTML structure perspective, this is not ideal. Why? Because you have to keep in mind that a modal basically is an overlay on your page. It is an overlay to the entire page. So logically, it's above everything else. And if it's then nested in some other HTML code, it might technically work because of styling, but it's not good code. It's not a good structure. And it can even lead to real problems, again, with styling or with accessibility if you have such nested overlay content, because if, for example, a screen reader has to interpret your HTML code which is being rendered, it might not see this as a general overlay, because your CSS styling won't matter too much there, and from a semantical perspective, from the structure it has, it's deeply structured in other HTML code. So it's not obvious that this modal should be an overlay to all the other content. And that's not just the case for modals. You would have similar problems for side drawers, for dialogues, so typically for all kinds of overlays or any related components. It's a little bit as if you would create a button by simply styling a div like a button and adding an event listener. It will work technically, but it's not a good practice. It's bad for accessibility, it's bad if a fellow developer has to work with that, it's simply not a good idea. In web development in general, with HTML and CSS and JavaScript, because it's so forgiving, you can make a lot of things work. But that doesn't mean that just because it works, it's also a good implementation. It's also a good idea to use it like this. And that's where we can use another React concept to get rid of this problem with this modal, with this overlay content which shouldn't be deeply nested. We can use a portal to keep the structure we have on the left, so to keep writing our components the way we want to write them, so that we have no friction when we want to pass data around and so on, but to still render this differently in the real DOM, and to, for example, render the modal HTML content somewhere else than it would normally go to. So that on the left, the JSX code we write hasn't changed, but the rendered HTML code is a bit different from our JSX code. So the modal there is not next to the form. And you can achieve this with React portals. So let's see how portals work.